Hello again, it's me, back again for another Horus Heresey review, this time talking about Descent of Angels. This was my first book I ever picked up for the Horus Heresey books. I know a lot of people complain, say, ooh, it's not a true Horus Heresey book, it's a little bit crappily written, but I personally found it's okay. I enjoyed, once again, it's another book that I enjoyed reading through, and with me being a noob to the series and jumping in at that point, I didn't know what to expect. And this wasn't actually a book about the Great Crusade, this was more about how the Lion of the Dark Angels manages to unite all the people on Caliban and destroys all the great beasts on Caliban. So it doesn't focus on the Lion himself, it more or less focuses on Zahariel, one of the soldiers of the Order, whom we slowly discover is a Psyker, a very powerful one at that fact. By the way that he kills the great beasts, one of the great beasts, the Calibanite lion. From then on in, you slowly build up into a story where after the Calibanites are unified, you learn that a lot of them don't like the new unification, and you find out about the politics of Caliban, which gets very interesting and plot-wise provides some very good background. I think I really enjoyed the point where it kind of said something of today, where you had elements of people pretty much against the new regime. They weren't happy, they didn't like all of this unification, they didn't want to all be the same person, they all wanted to be separate and secluded, but in touch with each other, so they could still have a war with each other, or they could still ally up. Another favourite part of it was the fact that after the the first Space Marines arrived to Caliban to meet up with the Lion and Luther, the conflict between the Calibanites and the Terrans does actually show itself very abruptly. You also discover that Luther didn't look to the Lion as a point of jealousy, he looked to him more like a son or a brother, much younger brother. But regardless of what went on, you also get to meet the Emperor, or we assume it's the Emperor at that point, and he basically mind wipes Zahariel of a treasonous plot that occurs in one of the orders. And after then, as the storyline gradually moves on, you begin to relate more to Zahariel and Luther rather than the Lion, because for some reason towards the end the Lion starts to become an absolute arsehole. He is basically the biggest. If he is his father's son, he's pretty much his father's son in the fact that he's an arsehole. Now, when we finish the book, we discover the first hints at the separation between the Fallen and the Calibanite loyalists. Though I can give you an idea of who's who, but my comment may say otherwise. After reading this one, I moved on to Fallen Angels, and that was a big surprise, because that was a book written by a different author, and it took the story like chapters in alternate fashion. So it swapped from Caliban to the fleet, to Caliban to the fleet, to Caliban to the fleet. And what happens is you find out that Luther becomes annoyed at the fact that he's just been relegated to training exercises with the new recruits. And the same thing happens with Zahariel and most of the other chapter, the rest of the chapter. They have an itch to scratch to go to war, but they can't go to war because they're left training all the newbies. However, on Caliban they discover that there's some little incidences that go along. But overall it's a well-written book from that perspective of Caliban, and you learn more secrets. You enjoy it, or I enjoyed it. Whereas on the other side you learn about how great a strategist the Lion is. You certainly learn that he can actually make an impossible odds look fairly probable. He starts to look like a military genius at that point. I'm sure he's pretty much the Montgomery of his day. Though you do find that on one of the worlds that's just being held, this is actually in the middle of the heresy, where you find out about the treachery of Horus, and you find the shock at brother fighting brother. That is a very interesting idea. But you don't see them fighting any other Space Marines. At least I don't remember seeing other Space Marines being fought. But there might have been. Or there might have been too few. And when you get through you learn about one of the secrets that Horus had in Surprise. And then when you get through that piece you learn about the Mechanicum supporting Horus and all of that. Speeding on more or less through it. You get towards the end and you start to discover, Lion, you're a stupid idiot. How could you be so foolish? And then you discover about the warp taint on Caliban. That's fun. That's a very funny scene as well. But hopefully I can get you to pick this up. These are interesting books from perspectives of the two different sides of Caliban and the two different sides of the Dark Angels. It's a very interesting book, and so is the Descent of Angels book. So I recommend picking those up and having a quick read of them, see what you think, and maybe get back to me and tell me what you think about the books. Thank you.